Welcome, Ignite attendees. My name is Anthony Kerr. I serve as the go-to-market lead for Skills for Employability in the Worldwide Learning Organization here at Microsoft. And you are at the How to Build Inclusive Technology for a Diverse World session. I'm here with two esteemed guests, both experts in their field, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as well as provide a short background of what they do here at Microsoft. MJ, I'm going to start with you.
Hi there, everyone. My name is MJ De Palma. I'm the head of multicultural and inclusive marketing at Microsoft Advertising. And my role is really an empowerment role, empowering internally our employees at Microsoft Advertising to equip them with strategies on inclusive marketing, but also you out there that are our customers and our clients on research and insights. We've been on a journey of the last 3 years in conducting our own first-party research on how inclusion plays a role in innovation and how brands can play a role in using inclusion to drive technology advances and advertising and really in any part of business. So very excited to be here. My pronouns are she, her, they, and them. I am a white female with short blonde hair, usually styled with a pompadour. I have a blue velvet jacket on for those of you who have vision impairment or who cannot see. So happy to be here.
Thanks for the introduction, MJ, and also thanks for the reminder. I forgot to describe myself. I am a man with a shirt that's a black shirt that says "We see you" for those who are visually impaired. And next, Hector, could you please introduce yourself and give us a short background and tell us what you do here at Microsoft?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Hector Minto. I'm an accessibility evangelist for Accessibility, based in Europe, based in the UK. I'm joining from an early evening in Oxford. I'm a white male with glasses, bald head, slightly longer than normal grey beard. My role is to really drive accessibility as a muscle within Microsoft, but also within our partner network, and to help our customers understand the investments we make in digital inclusion, what we call accessibility. I've spent my entire career working in what we call assistive technology or accessibility, and essentially we're helping our product teams and our customers and our partners build more inclusive experiences to include the 1 in 6 people on the planet with disabilities.
Thank you for that intro, Hector. So I'm going to stick with you and ask you to help the audience understand, what does it mean for a technology or technical product to be inclusive?
Absolutely. So as I say, I've worked my entire career in technology and disability. And I can tell you, 25 years ago, we only spoke about what we called assistive technology. These were specialist tools to essentially allow people with disabilities to access tech. I worked a lot with things like speaking computers to allow people to speak. I worked a lot with home automation systems for people to control their homes. But it always started with kind of a medical diagnosis, a health or social care professional assessing somebody for their technology. This has moved more to what we might call, is the experience accessible? Really, that came around the same time as the World Wide Web. You know, it was this idea that lots of people were out there building technology that people could access, but was it accessible? Was it built with people with disabilities in mind? I think what's really super interesting, I love the title of this session, Anthony, it's inclusive tech. I think this is a recognition of the evolving relationship that human beings have with technology. So now people with disabilities are one group of people who might require their technology to be built with inclusion in mind. But actually, we can widen this topic out now to people with low levels of literacy, people from low socioeconomic groups, people who are disconnected from the web, who don't have that connectivity in the world. So I would say it's kind of a spectrum if we think about the kind of the relationship of humans and technology. But fundamentally, my remit is to really focus people on perhaps the most excluded group, people with disabilities, because you don't make something accessible to somebody with a disability unless you deliberately do so. So how can we as a tech industry start to build this muscle to actually routinely start to deliver these accessible experiences?
Absolutely, that was a wonderful answer. And MJ, could you give us
Go ahead.
MJ, could you give us your perspective on the same question? What does it mean from your lens for technology to be inclusive, and how does that impact our audience when we go to market with technical products?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. So when I think about technology and I think about how it is related to inclusion, it really is about trusted technology. And trusted technology by design is fundamentally rooted in inclusive design principles, which is to uncover exclusions. And when we uncover how our tech might be excluding accidentally someone or a system or a set of data, we can innovate and thereby serving more people. And diversity of thought and diversity of data gets us to better outcomes. And so inclusive technology is really, I believe, a way to innovate and a way to drive impact and scale and serve more people in more of a personalized and relevant way. I think often I'm asked, what is the direct ROI? Or when you go to market, sometimes you're in a space that has no data, that has no baseline to say this is the direction we need to go. But I always ask clients, are you interested in reaching more people? Are you interested in finding new markets and new ways to step into solve problems for people? Usually the answer is an absolute yes, right? And that's what innovation is rooted in, and inclusive approaches to business, which includes technology, report 3 times higher levels of innovation. So who wouldn't want that, right?
Absolutely. We love innovation here at Microsoft. Hector, MJ was speaking about opening up new markets. Disability is not quite rare in the world, is it? So how prevalent is disability or people with disabilities? And how are those people impacted when technology does not solve for their needs?
Yeah, so estimates around 1 in 6 of the general population. So over 1 billion people on the planet have some form of a disability. Whether that's a disability that excludes them from the experience depends on the experience. Yep. So if we think of a phone call as a simple example, a phone call is not necessarily exclusionary for someone who's blind, but it is exclusionary for someone who is deaf. Yeah. So the service that's being provided, if somebody's not included in the design, that's where the exclusion happens. Now, where we're trying to get to with this is, from some time the tech industry has looked at its obligations essentially on accessibility. Are we designing experiences that are accessible? But as every company becomes a software company, exclusion now actually means not being able to bank, not being able to shop, not being able to access government services, not being able to vote. These are all human rights that we have, but in this digital first world, what it's going to mean if we don't build inclusive experiences is actually just lack of access. And we've learned this through COVID. Yeah, I mean, what we saw with this rapid acceleration of digital transformation, what we were seeing was everybody scrambling to kind of, deliver their service, their product digitally, allow their workforce to work from home, allow the meetings to happen digitally. Suddenly there was this massive recognition of disability out there. Honestly, we saw it everywhere, from employers speaking to us and saying, I never knew I had any deaf employees until everybody was sat on a screen, because people cover their deafness in the workplace, or people coming to us and saying, I didn't even realize I had people with dyslexia until we realized that we were forcing people into written materials or into training modules where they had to read big bodies of text. So it's the experience and the exclusion that drives the awareness quite often. I guess the challenge is, how do we as a tech industry support every industry to deliver these inclusive experiences? And I love that we're already talking about ROI. How do we help them to understand what the benefit is to reach more people? Interestingly, when we think about hidden disability, approximately 70% of disability is hidden. it's not until we force people into this one way of accessing a business or this new way of accessing a business that you'll start to recognize the customers you're losing because you haven't built these inclusive experiences.
The audience has brought up, or I'm unmuted now. And you're right, the audience has brought up ROI several times in the questions. So once we have, let's say, an inclusive product and an inclusive experience, I'm going to ask this question to MJ.
Sure.
First, can you define inclusive marketing for us so everyone knows what we're talking about? And then second, can you get into detail in regards to the ROI of doing inclusive marketing and the new opportunities it uncovers for a business?
Sure. This is really at the heart of like, why do this, right? And a couple of years ago, I set out to answer this question because we got often the same sentiment, like, what is the ROI? What is inclusive marketing? Let's level set first. Marketing is often described as the 5 or 6 Ps, right? So product, the people you're trying to reach, place, promotion, process, and we've added purpose too. Knowing a company's purpose is really important so that you can come across authentic. Now, product is really important to understand here as part of marketing. Marketing is not just promotion. Marketing is not just an ad. Marketing is not just picking a particular image and checking a box and saying, oh, I got some audience that looks diverse, I'm good to go. It's also about engineering. It's also about the way we do business is our marketing. And so we set out a couple years ago now and did some research. What are the trust drivers of brands and the psychology of inclusion in the effects in advertising? And what came out of those studies is a clear indication that inclusion drives loyalty. Inclusion in advertising experience increases purchase intent by a factor of 23 points. And it didn't matter what gender or ethnicity the respondents were. The increase was very clear. Sometimes it was 38 points as high for women and 18 points for men. But I think that what's really important to understand is every brand, every experience is rooted in understanding your customer, getting close to them, and understanding how they get to your product, service, or experience, how your product, service, or experience solves their problem. And I think there's a question too about, like, how do I do this as a marketer on a daily basis? And if you're in tech, how do I do this as an engineer? We have to be human-centered approach to understand how somebody, what their lived experience is to get those insights, right? And so understanding, like, say, how a person with a physical disability plans a vacation and what words do they use to search on that? Or say from the LGBTQI plus community, what words do they use to search to plan their vacation? I'm going to guarantee you that there's a high percentage that use the phrase gay friendly. There's lots of signals and cues. And so out of both of those studies, we understood that there's 3 trust drivers for companies. So whether you're designing a product or an ad campaign, being responsible, whether that's with privacy or making sure that you're compliant to accessibility laws and transparent with how you use people's data, is being responsible. It's coming to the table and showing that you have your customer's best interest at heart. Values, to know what you stand for and that your mission is front and center with how you design technology. Anything you do needs to align to that so people can connect and say, I believe in this in this brand. I have shared values. And then last but not least, inclusion is another area of the core building blocks to trust. And inclusion can be activated in so many different ways, but it's really about uncovering our biases and making sure there's diversity in thought in every single project, because we can't possibly know everything, right? We're all on a journey. No one has this perfect. It's about deliberate curiosity about our customers, being the best student of our customers' business so that we can uncover those aha moments and, those golden nuggets that lead us down a path of technology that can help humans navigate this accelerated world. So I hope that answers that question.
It does perfectly. And sticking with, let's say, the theme of solving for an audience and purposely solving for that audience, when you are solving for an audience that has a disability, sometimes that results in a new product altogether. So Hector, give us an example of new products, new technologies that were built with accessibility in mind, and how that impacted the business and the importance of that to the business.
Absolutely. And just so you know, this is not a new trend. I mean, believe it or not, 20 years ago, I was clipping touchscreens to the front of school computers for kids with physical disabilities. They were kind of $5,000 or $5,000 ago. We were experimenting with touchscreens before we got anywhere near the mainstream in the disability space. Same for word prediction, same for emojis, same for everything. Disability or innovation in the disability space has always been this rich space, and one that every company should really explore, no matter what industry you're in. There's some lovely examples just in the standard modern Microsoft offer. The immersive reader is just amazing, right? I mean, if you're watching this on Edge right now, highlight some text on a page, right click, go into the immersive reader, and you just see this amazing experience for people with dyslexia. That's where it was predominantly designed, where you can change the color background, use some what we call dyslexia friendly colors, the LRN colors, split the words into their syllables, and even have picture support for the text that's on that website that you're looking at right now. Now, that's now available on Azure, because actually what we're starting to see is that people look at that and say, that's going to help people acclimatizing in a new country, straight away with the pictorial support and with the translation and with the read aloud feature built in. It's going to help people with low literacy. It started with dyslexia, but consider that the average reading age in the UK here, where I'm sitting, is 9 years old. When we go and build product for the general populace who are all using technology now, that tool that started in dyslexia is going to be just as appropriate for a much larger audience. Another great example, I think, is this voice transcription that you see everywhere now. Sorry, I should have said the immersive reader is built into Teams. You can actually play with it right here in Teams, actually. But the captioning that you're starting to see, the auto captioning that's in PowerPoint, Present Live, PowerPoint itself, here in Teams, but actually also in Stream, the ways that we're starting to see that used are things like a meeting search within businesses. If everything is transcribed, think how that accelerates search in any business. I can tell you that I use that all the time. Before I go and see a customer, I'll look up the customer's name on our Microsoft Stream channels, see who's talking about that business within the business, do my homework, and go into that meeting fully prepared. So the captions really help people who have a second language, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but then it also just accelerates this productivity win because the features are just there. People start to use them for their own means. So the idea that we hack around disability, we use the modern toolkit to design these new products. But what we're really looking for next, I think, are people to look at what Microsoft are doing with our products, take that tech and go and apply it to their own products, their own industries.
Thank you for that example. That really highlights the power of solving for accessibility and being inclusive intentionally, and how that technology comes into fruition. MJ, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go through one of our many inclusive marketing case studies, but we have a question from the audience. What type of feedback loop is important after you have approached your customers with tech-based inclusion? Are there specific Microsoft case studies that show incremental success based on customer feedback? I ask because needs of customers are evolving quickly during the pandemic.
Well, I think having open communication channels with customers has always been an imperative to be able to deliver what our customers need. So I think that from a COVID standpoint, technology has played an incredible role in being able to step in and and help people have access to education and work. There's also, I would say, a need for constantly seeking out that feedback. So it's one thing to get feedback just, passively, but I think having deliberate extensions into different types of customers is really important. Being deliberate that your diversity and geography, making sure that where you're getting your feedback from your customers is not just from one geographical area or one type of customer, but making sure that that input is diverse. We often at Microsoft Advertising have what we call product advisory groups. And it's usually a roundtable where we do get real-time conversations and feedback from customers. And we've been deliberate at making sure that those customer panels are diverse in types of businesses and human beings of who they are, and just ensuring that that cohort is diverse leads us down to a better outcome and that we're not missing anything. And I think that's fundamental scientific method, right? Right. I think it's the original case study was McKinsey did a study many years ago on the diversity of groups, and that a homogeneous group performs really well, very fast, but only attains a certain level of performance. But if you have a diverse group of people, it's very messy at first. And once you start to hear everybody's point of view, you get to eventually performance that outpaces the homogeneous group. So it might take a little longer to get to performance, but you will perform at a higher level and get better outcomes. So I also just want to call out that from deliberate curiosity, this is just one small, Microsoft, I wouldn't call it a case study, but I call it a really extremely great example of a group of employees at Microsoft wanting to understand people with disabilities and how they gamed. And if you're not familiar with it, Xbox's adaptive controller was created because they wanted to help meet the mismatch, because the definition of disability is the relationship between the person and their environment, that it's a mismatch. It's not the condition of the person any longer. It is a mismatch, and they solve that mismatch. And, in terms of, standing for what Xbox is about, when, everyone plays, we all win. And I think that there is an incredible halo effect that can happen for brand favorability and whatnot. So I hope that helps. I see a lot of activity coming in on the questions, I think, here. I'm going to start to read. I'll pass it back to Anthony.
Absolutely. So yes, we have 7 minutes left. So if you have a question that you're burning to have our panelists answer for you, get that in right now. So another question from the audience. Is there a way to connect with someone at Microsoft around accessibility? And that goes to you, Hector.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons that we're out there now in the community, working with our partners, working with our customers, working on our offices, we're scaling our accessibility teams around the globe, getting people up to that level where they're comfortable to go and have these conversations, go and have these exciting conversations. So, the population at Microsoft supporting accessibility out there in the field is so much larger than it ever has been. So please get in touch with me on LinkedIn or find us on Twitter, MSFT Enable. You can also get in touch with our global disability answer desk in terms of any product issues you may be facing or any accessibility support that you need with our products. In terms of connecting with us in the community, the other thing is we have our Ability Summit in May. We're hoping to have 20,000 people attend the Ability Summit this year. So that's an amazing place to actually get time with all of us, with everyone across the Ability team, but also people from our product teams, our engineering groups, the people actually building inclusive technology. So yeah, put May 5th, 6th in the diary.
Perfect. And MJ, if one of our customers wanted to do some inclusive marketing, how would they get in touch with us?
So I think there's two avenues and resources that are incredible that we have at Microsoft. If you go to Microsoft Learn, there is a whole collection on inclusive marketing that you can take those courses, and we're going to push those links out to you right now. The other thing that I would say is just I have a series of blog posts on the Microsoft Advertising blog, and it's everything from accessibility to image choice to marketing with purpose and how to drive growth through more trusted customer experiences. All of the resources that I've been producing with my team can be found that way. I also know I could see that there is also a question on how do you internally sell this idea, and I think it's a journey, right? And it's a journey of learning, and I didn't get here overnight. It's been a few years now, but I think the first order of business is to understand what your core purpose as a company is. What is your brand purpose, and how do you show up in the world, and how can you build a more trusted customer experience? I think there's so many opportunities. There's small tactics and there's big motions that you can do. Tactics like understanding the customer consumer decision journey and understanding how various dimensions of what it means to be a human being, whether you're in one geographical area or you're a parent or you're older or you're younger or a person with a disability or what have you. We all have different experiences, and what is that journey for your customer? That's really like the deliberate curiosity drives incredible insight, and you can uncover opportunities that way. So learn, go to Microsoft Learn, and marketing with purpose, and you can find that by going to my blog. Just do a search on Bing for once.
Absolutely, definitely do the search on Bing. Sticking with you, MJ, is there any advice for driving the change in an organization, in your own organization, so that they build the muscle, build the energy and the will to do inclusive marketing?
Yeah, so I just had a really great conversation with an ad agency in London that we had talked about inclusive marketing just only, it was like a couple of years ago, and they've been on this path to do exactly what this question is getting to. Like, how do you enable internally? How do you get everyone on the same page? And they just simply looked at how they currently do business and what are the opportunities that you can apply an inclusive lens. So for instance, if you're going to look at your assets and the audiences and your automation and just what you normally do on your day-to-day basis, what would be some activities that you could do to apply an inclusive lens? And they created a inclusive marketing checklist for all of their campaigns. And it is a way to help their teams feel confident. It's a journey that I think each and every company should do some research and work that works for their processes that they already have in place. It's not about an add-on campaign, and it's not about a separate discipline. I really believe that at some point, this is the way marketing will be. And so it's about building it in to the current systems that you already have and the way that you approach your client's business. And that's the same with like designing tech. It's about building it in. You know, Hector can share with how building it in instead of bolting accessibility on later, it works out way better for everyone. It's much more cost efficient. It's a better experience, and you don't have to revisit and pull everything apart to redo it. It's the same with campaigns. Make sure that you take a look at the Marketing with Purpose playbook. You'll find that through going to my blog, and it can give you all the data that anyone's asked for data points. It's in the playbook, and you can make the case for not just inclusive marketing. Remember, marketing is not just promotion. Marketing is about product design and how you frame your products and what problems you're solving for people. So it's a much more larger discipline and can really drive growth through more customer trusted experiences.
Absolutely. And Hector, we have 1 minute left, so I'm
okay.
giving you opportunity. You are closing thoughts.
I just like to corroborate what MJ is saying here. You know, I often think when I see companies who've been picked up when they've dropped the ball on accessibility and they kind of try to bolt it on afterwards, in the same way that it's much harder to do it digitally and in terms of the technology, it's also much harder to get your reputation back if you're seen to publicly try and add on inclusion afterwards. So whether you're marketing, whether you're creating a company, or a company culture, or whether you're creating a product, getting that inclusion conversation, honestly, just a conversation and some concept of rigor on the topic into your project as you kick it off, I think that's what's going to protect you in the long run as you move forward. People love to hear the backstory about how you've been deliberately inclusive from the start. That's when you actually really take people with you.
Absolutely.
And with that, absolutely. And with that, unfortunately, we've ran out of time. So what you have on your screen here is the speaker. So feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we will hopefully have this discussion again at the next big Microsoft event, Ignite. So thank you for attending and have a great Ignite.